Welcome back. We are diving deep today. And I have to say, usually when we open these up, I'm expecting, a stack of papers on ancient history or maybe some dense corporate strategy. But today, I opened the file you sent over, and it felt like I was looking at the schematics for a weapon system.
It certainly has that aesthetic, doesn't it?
It really does. Everything is red alert. Dark backgrounds, glowing red text, just urgency in every single bullet point. We are not talking about standard business today. We are plugging into something faster, louder, and honestly a lot scarier. We were talking about the invisible war happening behind the scenes of one of the biggest entertainment industries on the planet.
It's a sector that has quietly, or maybe loudly, depending on your volume settings, grown into an absolute financial juggernaut. We're talking about esports.
Competitive gaming. And I want to stop right there because I know some listeners might be rolling their eyes thinking, okay, video games.
Yeah.
Teenagers in basements. But we need to just shatter that image right now. We are looking at the numbers from the source material, and this is an industry worth over $1.8 billion.
Precisely. And that's a conservative estimate. The prize pools alone for some of these tournaments can exceed $40 million for a single event.
$40 million.
$40 million. To put that in perspective, that rivals and in some cases completely surpasses major traditional sporting events like the Masters in golf or Grand Slam tennis tournaments.
That's massive. But here's the catch, and this is where our deep dive really begins. Because this sport is entirely digital, because it exists purely as code, the threats they're unique. You don't have to worry about a streaker running onto the field. You have to worry about invisible armies trying to burn the stadium down from the inside.
That is a very, very apt analogy. In a physical stadium, security means, metal detectors and guards. In esports, the field is a server. If that code breaks or if the network gets flooded, the sport just simply ceases to exist.
Right.
The mission defined in these documents is really threefold: protect the players, secure the platforms, and defend the game itself.
And the stakes. The source material threw a statistic at me that I actually had to read twice. It says DDoS attacks, and we'll get into exactly what those are. Later disrupt 40% of esports tournaments.
40%. I mean, just let that sink in.
That is almost half. Imagine if you were watching the Super Bowl, and nearly every other year, the screen just went black for 30 minutes because someone flooded the stadium lights with too much electricity. That is the scale of disruption we're talking about.
And it creates this climate of constant defense. You mentioned that red alert aesthetic of the source material earlier. That isn't just a design choice. It's a reflection of the reality for these security teams. They are in a war room. They are fighting a multi-front battle against aimbots, organized crime, account thieves, and they are doing it all while millions of people are watching live.
So let's map out this battlefield. Section 1 is the threat landscape. Why esports? I mean, sure, there's money. Banks have money. Hedge funds have money. Why are hackers so obsessed with video games?
It's the perfect storm of value and vulnerability. The source highlights a really surprising fact here. Gaming is now the #1 targeted industry for DDoS attacks. It has surpassed financial services.
That is wild to me. You would think the guys with the vaults full of gold would be the #1 target.
You would think. But consider the assets that are involved in gaming. First, you have these high-value virtual assets. We're talking about skins.
Oh, like cosmetic items for your character or weapon?
Exactly. And some of these can sell for thousands of real dollars on secondary markets. Then you have accounts that players have leveled up for thousands of hours, which have their own intrinsic value.
Right, so stealing a Steam account is like stealing a wallet.
It is. But the real key, the reason it surpasses banking in terms of these kinds of attacks, is the live nature of it all. It's the immediacy.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, if you attack a bank's website and it goes down for 10 minutes, it's annoying, sure. Customers can't check their balance. But the money is safe. The transactions are just queued up. They happen later. No value is actually destroyed. It's just delayed.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, look at a live esports tournament. It is happening in real time. If the server goes down for 10 seconds during a critical match, the match is ruined. You can't just pause and resume smoothly. The momentum is gone. The competitive integrity is shattered. That immediacy gives attackers massive leverage for things like extortion.
So it's the difference between locking the doors to a bank for an hour and turning off the lights in the middle of a surgery.
That's a bit dramatic, but yes, that's the idea. The fragility of the live event makes it a prime target.
So who are these people? Who is on the other side of the screen? Is it just bored kids in a basement?
I wish we're just bored kids. The source breaks the bad actors down into 4 main groups, and it gets progressively darker. First, yes, you do have the cheaters and hackers.
These are the players who just want to win, right?
Yeah.
The digital trophy?
Right. They're seeking an unfair competitive advantage. Then you've got the account thieves. These are the capitalists of the dark web. They don't care about the game. They care about the value of your login credentials. They want to strip your account for parts and sell it.
Okay, so standard criminals.
Then you have the DDoS attackers. This group can be motivated by extortion. Pay us 5 Bitcoin or we shut down your tournament. Or it could just be for notoriety. Some groups just want to prove they can do it.
Just to watch the world burn.
In a sense, yes. But it's the fourth group that should really make you sit up straight. Organized crime.
Organized crime. Wait, we were talking about, like, syndicates?
Digital syndicates, yes.
No.
They are heavily involved in match fixing and money laundering. Think about it. If you can manipulate the outcome of a match by knocking a key player offline at a critical moment, or if you have insider info on a rigged game, there is a fortune to be made in the unregulated betting markets.
That is terrifying. It completely shifts the narrative from kids pranking to serious felony-level territory.
And the cost of failure is astronomical. The source says the average breach cost in the gaming industry is $3.9 million. But the reputational damage is so much worse. We have examples right here in the notes. 2022, Riot Games had their source code breached.
Which is like the blueprint of the entire game.
It's the DNA of the game. In 2021, EA had 780 gigabytes of data stolen. Nintendo in 2020 had 300,000 accounts compromised. These are giants, and they are taking heavy, heavy hits.
So to understand how they defend against this, the course material brings up a concept called the CIA triad. Now, I'm assuming this has nothing to do with the spies in Langley.
No, completely distinct from the agency, though the concepts are similar. In cybersecurity, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's the fundamental model for security. When you apply it to esports, it looks very specific.
Let's walk through them. Confidentiality. In a bank, that's don't show anyone my balance. What is it in esports?
In esports, it's all about strategy. Confidentiality means protecting the playbook. If a pro team has been practicing a secret strategy for the World Finals, a specific movement pattern, a certain character selection, and a hacker leaks that info to their opponents, their competitive edge is just gone.
That's like stealing the signals in baseball.
Exactly. It also covers protecting user credentials, of course. You don't want player emails and passwords leaking out.
Okay, that makes sense. Integrity.
This is the absolute pillar of sports. Integrity means ensuring the data hasn't been altered. In gaming, it means the scoreboard must be true. If I shoot you in the game, the server must record that I hit you. If a hacker can alter the game state to say they won when they actually lost, or if they can give themselves infinite health, the sport completely collapses.
If you can't trust the score, you don't have a game.
You don't have a game, correct. And finally, availability.
The server uptime. They have to be online.
Yes. The game must be playable. This is where those DDoS attacks come in. If the service isn't available, there is no sport. In traditional apps, 99% uptime is considered pretty good. In esports, during a tournament, you need 100%. There's no margin for error.
So we have the stakes, we have the bad guys, and we have the theory. Now let's talk about the actual defenses. The source material calls the first line of defense account security. And it starts with a pretty blunt statement. The weakest link is usually the human.
It is the golden rule of security. You can have a $10 million firewall, sophisticated AI monitoring, biometric locks, everything. But if a player uses the password 123, you're vulnerable.
Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I feel like we've been told this for 20 years, but people still do it.
They do. And that leads to one of the biggest threats mentioned here, credential stuffing. I want to explain this because I think people misunderstand how it works. They think a hacker sits there guessing passwords one by one.
Right, like typing in admin, then admin 1, then admin 2.
That's not how it happens at all. It's industrialized. Hackers buy combo lists on the dark web. These are massive text files with millions, sometimes billions, of email and password pairs that were stolen from other weaker sites. Maybe a knitting forum you signed up for in 2012 got hacked.
Okay, so they have my password from the knitting forum. Who cares? I don't care about that. I care about my Steam account.
But what if you used the same password for both? That's where they get you. They use automated bots tools like Sentry MBA or OpenBullet to take that list of millions of credentials and just stuff them into the login pages of high-value targets like Epic Games or Steam.
So the bot is just trying thousands of keys in the lock every single minute.
Exactly. And eventually, if one turns, they're in. They don't need to hack the game company directly. They just need to rely on the fact that you, the user, reused a password.
So The defense against this is obviously better passwords, but I feel like password advice has changed so much over the years. I remember being told to change my password every 90 days, but the expert notes here say that is outdated.
It is completely outdated. The thinking has shifted significantly. If you force people to change their password every 3 months, what do? They just change password 1 to password 2.
Filthy.
We all are. Humans are predictable. Those tiny changes are incredibly weak. The new standard, and this is so crucial for everyone listening, is length over complexity.
Length over complexity. Break that down.
Okay, so a password like Shrub4Dorn3, which looks complex with the symbols and numbers, is actually quite easy for a computer to crack because it follows standard substitution patterns. Humans replace A with at, or O with 0. Computers know this.
So my clever little tricks aren't actually that clever.
Not to an algorithm, no. But a passphrase, a string of random words like correct horse battery staple, is much, much harder for a computer to guess. The entropy, the randomness is just so much higher.
Correct. Horse battery staple. I like that. It's weird, but I can actually remember a picture of a horse with a battery and a staple. I can't remember X-9%.
Exactly. It plays to human memory strengths while defeating computer brute force attacks.
Now, on the flip side, the companies have a responsibility here too. The notes mention something called argon tuid. It sounds like a chemical element from the periodic table.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a hashing algorithm. So when a company stores your password, they should never, ever store it as plain text. They hash it. They scramble it into a long, irreversible string of characters.
Like a secret code?
Yes. But older codes like MD5 or SHA-1 are too fast. A modern hacker with a powerful graphics card can guess billions of those hashes per second. Argon tuid is different. It is designed to be memory hard.
Memory hard.
It forces the computer to use a significant chunk of RAM and do a really complex calculation for every single guess. It intentionally slows the process way, way down. So instead of guessing billions of passwords a second, the hacker might only be able to guess a few thousand.
It makes it too expensive to even try and hack.
Precisely. It shifts the economics entirely. If it costs more in electricity and time to crack the password than the account is worth, the hacker just moves on.
That's smart. Now, even with a great password, you need a backup plan. And that brings us to MFA, multi-factor authentication. But the notes here suggest that not all MFA is created equal. There's a hierarchy.
There is a very definite hierarchy. At the bottom, the least secure method that's still better than nothing is SMS codes.
Wait, really? Getting a text code is the worst one? That's what I use for everything. My bank, my email,
Yeah,
everything.
it is absolutely better than nothing. I want to be clear on that. Do not turn it off if it's your only option. But it is vulnerable to something called SIM swapping.
How does that work?
It's all social engineering. A hacker calls your mobile phone carrier, pretending to be you. They say, hey, I lost my phone, I bought a new one. Please switch my service to this new SIM card I have. If they're convincing enough, and they are very, very good at this, the carrier switches the service.
And suddenly my phone goes dead, and their phone lights up with my phone number.
Exactly. And now they get your text messages, including all your security codes. They can bypass your password and your MFA in one go.
That is terrifyingly easy. So what's better?
Moving up the ladder, you have authenticator apps like Google Authenticator or Authy. These generate codes on your device itself. The code never travels over the phone network, so it can't be intercepted via SIM swapping.
Okay, that makes sense. It's self-contained, but at the very top, the gold standard are hardware keys.
Yes. Things like a YubiKey or a Google Titan key. This is a physical USB stick you keep on your keychain. You have to physically plug it into your computer or tap it to your phone to log in.
Why is that the best?
Because it's almost unofficiable. Even if a hacker tricks you into clicking a fake link that looks exactly like the Steam login page and you type in your password, the fake site cannot replicate the physical hardware key in your pocket. The cryptographic handshake will fail.
So if you're a pro gamer with an account worth thousands or a tournament organizer, you really should be carrying a physical key.
Absolutely. It is the only way to be sure.
Okay, let's shift gears to what I think is the most controversial part of this deep dive. Section 3. Cheating. The cheating epidemic. I knew cheating was annoying. Nobody likes playing against a cheater. But I didn't realize it was an industry. The source says cheating software revenue is over $100 million.
It is a massive shadow economy. We're not talking about a kid entering a cheat code like up, 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 down, down. We are talking about talented software engineers who write sophisticated code to break games, and they sell it as a subscription.
Subscriptions. like Netflix for cheating.
Exactly like Netflix. You pay a monthly fee, maybe $20 or $50, to have access to an aimbot or a wall hack. And if the game updates, the cheat developers update their software to match. It's a full-blown service.
That is just wild. Let's define some of these cheats briefly. Aimbots.
An aimbot automates your aiming. It snaps your crosshair to the enemy's head instantly. You literally cannot miss.
Wall hacks.
That's also known as ESP, or extrasensory perception. It draws a box around enemy players, allowing you to see them through solid walls. You always know exactly when they're coming around the corner.
And speed hacks.
That's just manipulating the game's physics to move faster than you're allowed to.
It just ruins the game. If you're playing against a computer script, what's the point of the competition? But catching them seems to be getting harder and harder. It's described here as an arms race.
It is the perfect term for it. In the early days, anti-cheat software worked by signature detection. Think of it like a flu shot. The antivirus has a database of what the cheat file looks like. If it sees that file on your computer, bam, you are banned.
But the cheat developers got smarter.
Of course. They started randomizing their code. They would change the signature every single time a user downloaded it, so the anti-cheat software didn't recognize it anymore.
So how did the defenders respond to that?
They moved to behavioral analysis. This is where AI really comes in. It starts looking at how you play. If your reaction time is consistently 0.0001 seconds, which is physically impossible for a human, even a pro, the system flags you, or if your crosshair snaps to a target in a perfect straight line, which humans just don't do.
Because humans are jittery. We're imperfect.
Exactly. But then, and this is the arms race part, the cheat developers countered again. They added humanization to their bots. They added artificial jitter. They added random delays. They made the aimbot miss occasionally on purpose, just to fool the AI.
This is a nightmare. So where has this arms race led us? It brings us to this term I keep seeing in the notes, kernel-level access. This seems to be the nuclear option. Can you explain what kernel-level means to a layperson?
Okay, imagine your computer is a house. Most programs you run, Word, Chrome, Discord, they live in the guest rooms. They have limited access. This is called user mode, or ring 3. They can do their job, but they can't rearrange the furniture and the rest of the house.
Okay, got it.
The kernel is the master bedroom, or maybe it's the foundation and the electrical wiring of the house. It's ring 0. It has access to everything, the hardware, the memory, every other program that's running. It controls the reality for the computer.
So to catch the cheaters,
the anti-cheat software needs to live in the master bedroom too, because that's where the sophisticated cheats are hiding. Modern cheats operate at the kernel level specifically to hide their presence from the operating system. If the anti-cheat is stuck out in the guest room, in user mode, it literally cannot see the cheat running in the kernel.
So companies like Riot Games with their Vanguard software or BattleEye and Easy Anti-Cheat have developed these drivers that load when your computer boots up, giving them deep, deep system access.
Correct. They boot up before almost anything else so they can watch the system load and ensure that nothing malicious is injecting itself deep inside.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. Actually, I didn't even have to play. I am genuinely skeptical. You're telling me that to play a video game, a piece of entertainment, I have to give a private corporation the keys to the master bedroom of my digital life.
That is the trade-off.
That sounds insane. Why should I trust a game developer with the same level of access that my operating system has? If they get hacked, doesn't that mean the hackers have a backdoor into my entire PC?
That is the billion-dollar question. And you are absolutely right to be skeptical. From a pure security standpoint, installing a kernel driver absolutely increases your attack surface. If a bad actor finds a vulnerability in the Riot Vanguard driver, for example, they could theoretically use that to take over your machine.
So we are creating this massive vulnerability just to stop someone from aiming too well in a shooter game.
That is the conflict. The game companies argue that without this level of access, the game becomes unplayable because cheaters will just overrun it. They argue that competitive integrity is the product they're selling. If the game is full of cheaters, nobody plays, and the $1.8 billion industry collapses.
So it's a hostage situation. Give us your privacy or the game dies.
In many ways, yes. The expert analysis here suggests that for the pro scene, this is accepted as a necessity, but for the casual user, it is a very heavy ask. You're trusting that the company won't misuse that access, that they won't scan your personal files or look at your browser history, and you're trusting that they are competent enough to secure that driver against hackers.
That is a lot of trust. And speaking of integrity, we have to touch on match fixing again. The outline mentions something called stream sniping. This feels less high-tech, but just as damaging.
Stream sniping is fascinating because it uses the system against itself. It targets streamers, players who are broadcasting their gameplay live on platforms like Twitch or YouTube.
Right, showing their entire screen to thousands of viewers.
So if I'm playing against a popular streamer, I can just open their stream on a second monitor. Now I can see exactly where they're hiding. I can see their health. I can see their entire strategy in real time.
It's the modern version of looking at your friend's screen in split-screen mode on the couch.
Precisely. But with millions of dollars potentially on the line in some cases, or just to grief them.
So what's the fix for that? Do we need kernel drivers for this too?
Thankfully, no. The solution is remarkably low-tech. Delays. You just put a 2 to 5 minute delay on the broadcast. By the time the sniper sees where you are on the stream, you're already gone. The information is stale and useless. Simple, effective.
I like that. Okay, moving to section 4, network security. This is the infrastructure. We talked about DDoS, but let's get into the how of protecting against it. The source mentions zero trust principles. Never trust, always verify.
Zero trust is a complete paradigm shift. In the olden days, network security was like a castle. You had a moat and a big wall, which was the firewall. Once you got inside that castle, people generally assumed you belonged there. You could wander from room to room.
But if a spy got over the wall, they had free reign of the whole castle.
Exactly. Zero trust assumes the spy is already inside. So it puts a security guard at every single door inside the castle. Every time you try to access a database or a server or a file, the system checks your ID again.
Who are you? And do you really need to be here?
Every single time. It dramatically limits the blast radius. If a hacker compromises one account, they can't just pivot and take over the whole network because they get stopped at the very next door.
And for tournament infrastructure, they talk about segmentation.
This is crucial. You keep the public-facing game servers, the ones connected to the internet, completely separate from the internal admin systems. This is the DMZ, the demilitarized zone concept. If hackers take down the game server with a DDoS attack, they shouldn't be able to just jump from there to the payroll system or the player database.
That makes total sense. Now, what about LAN events? The local area network tournaments where everyone is in the same physical arena. You'd think that would be safer because it's mostly offline, right?
Not necessarily. Physical access is a huge vulnerability. The notes mention something called 802.1x port authentication.
That is a mouthful.
It sounds technical, but it's conceptually very simple. It just means you can't walk up to a wall jack in the arena, plug in an Ethernet cable, and suddenly be on the network.
Like in the movies where the hacker finds a random network port in a closet and plugs in?
Exactly. With 802.1x, the network port itself asks, "Who are you?" It requires a digital credential. If your device isn't on the approved guest list, the port stays dead. It prevents a random fan or a malicious actor posing as a janitor from physically plugging into the tournament network.
Smart. Now let's go back to DDoS for a second, because the detail here is fascinating.
Yeah.
Why does it hurt gaming more than websites? We touched on it, but the technical reason is latency.
Right. If you're loading a web page and it takes 2 seconds instead of 0.5 seconds, you barely notice. You might frown, but you wait. In a game like Counter-Strike or League of Legends, everything happens in milliseconds. A delay of 100 milliseconds is the difference between getting a kill and being killed.
It creates that horrible lag.
It creates jitter and packet loss. You press the button to shoot, but the server doesn't receive the command until it's far too late. The game becomes completely unplayable. And the cost. The source says it can be over $100,000 per hour of downtime.
Wow, that's lost. Ad revenue, refunds, operational costs. It just burns cash.
And one of the specific tactics mentioned is key grabbing. This one gave me the chills because it targets individual players.
How does that work?
It exploits voice over IP, or VoIP. Many voice chat systems, especially older peer-to-peer ones, actually expose your IP address to the people you're talking to. The data has to go from my computer to yours, so our computers need to know each other's address.
Okay.
So if a bad actor joins your voice chat party, maybe on Discord or an in-game chat, they can sniff the network traffic, they capture the packets coming from your computer, look at the header, and there it is, your home IP address.
And once they have that?
They point a booter service at your house. For $5 on the dark web, they can flood your home router with so much traffic, it just gives up.
So you're playing a high-stakes match, you join a chat, and suddenly your home internet just dies.
And you disconnect from the match, your team has to play a man down, and you lose. It's a very common tactic in high-rank play to sabotage specific opponents.
So how do companies stop these massive DDoS waves? The source talks about the bouncer approach.
Right. Imagine a popular nightclub. If everyone tries to rush the front door at once, the door gets blocked, nobody gets in. The club is effectively DDoSed.
Okay.
You need bouncers, but not just at the front door. You need them at the end of the street.
Yeah.
This is the edge network. They inspect the traffic before it ever reaches the main server. They look at the ID. Are you a real player, or are you a bot sending garbage data? If you're a bot, they just drop you right there at the curb. You never even get close to the club.
And anycast networks, that was another term in the mitigation section.
Anycast is a brilliant routing trick. Usually, a server has one IP address at one location. It's like your house having one address. If everyone tries to drive to your house at once, the street gets jammed.
Right.
Anycast allows multiple servers all around the world to share the exact same IP address. So when a global attack happens, when a million bots try to flood that one IP, the internet's own routing protocols automatically send the traffic to the nearest server.
So the attack gets split up.
Exactly. The bots in Europe hit the European server. The bots in Asia hit the Asian server. It completely dilutes the attack. Instead of a massive tidal wave hitting one spot, it becomes a manageable ripple spread across the entire globe.
It spreads the load. Like a dam with 1,000 little spillways instead of just one big one.
That is a perfect visualization, yes.
Okay, Section 5, Incident Response. This is what happens when the walls are finally breached. And I have to say, this statistic floored me. The mean time to detect in gaming averages 197 days.
Nearly 200 days.
That's over 6 months. That means a hacker could break in January, lives inside the servers, read emails, steal data, and nobody even notices until July.
That is the reality. And it highlights a huge misconception people have about hacking. They think it's like the movie's alarms go off, red lights start flashing.
Intruder alert.
Right. But real hackers, the pros, are silent. They want persistence. They want to stay inside as long as possible, to harvest as much as they can. They move laterally, quietly elevating their privileges. This is why that zero trust model is so key. You have to assume they're already there.
So when they finally do notice, maybe a customer reports a stolen credit card or an admin sees a weird file transfer, what happens next? The source outlines the NIST framework: preparation, detection, containment, eradication, recovery.
It's the standard playbook, and preparation is the most important step. You need a run book. You don't want to be deciding who to call while the servers are melting down.
But let's zoom in on forensics, because this is the real CSI part, the digital crime scene.
It really is CSI. When a breach happens, the first instinct of an IT guy is often to panic and pull the plug. Reboot the server, stop the bleeding.
That seems logical. Kick him out of the system.
It is the absolute worst thing you can do. Because the evidence, the fingerprints of the attacker, are often stored in the memory, the RAM. And RAM is volatile. If you cut the power, the RAM is wiped clean. The evidence of how they got in, the malware they injected, any encryption keys they might have left behind, it all just vanishes into thin air.
So you have to freeze the scene.
Exactly. You disconnect it from the network so they can't steal any more data, but you keep it powered on. Then you use tools like volatility to take a perfect snapshot of the memory. You use Wireshark to analyze the captured network packets.
And what's this about chain of custody?
That's the legal side of it. You have to prove that the evidence hasn't been tampered with. So you hash the hard drive image. You create a unique digital fingerprint of the drive. If you ever want to prosecute the attacker in court or even just file a valid cyber insurance claim, you need that proof. If the hash ever changes, the evidence gets thrown out.
And the nerve center for all of this is the SOC, the Security Operations Center. It describes different tiers of analysts: Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3.
It works like a funnel. Tier 1 are the watchers. They are staring at the screens 24/7. They see the alerts: hey, this login failed 500 times in 1 minute. They triage it. Is this a bug? Is it a user forgetting their password? Or is it a real attack?
And if it looks real, they pass it up the chain.
To Tier 2, the investigators. They dig deeper, they look at the logs, they correlate data from different systems to build a picture of what's happening.
And Tier 3, they're called threat hunters.
Threat hunters. It sounds like a cool job title because it is. These are the elite analysts. They don't wait for alerts. They assume the alerts have already failed. They are actively diving into the data lakes, searching for subtle anomalies, looking for patterns that might indicate a sophisticated attacker who knows how to avoid tripping the standard alarms.
So they're looking for the needle in the haystack before the needle ever pricks them. We're coming into the home stretch here. Section 6, privacy and compliance. This is the legal wrapper around all of this technical stuff. We have things like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California. But the one that seems huge for gaming specifically is COPPA.
COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. This is massive because, unlike banking or enterprise software, a significant chunk of the gaming demographic is under the age of 13.
And companies can get absolutely hammered for ignoring this.
Hammered is the right word. Look at the example provided here, Epic Games. They paid a $520 million settlement.
$500 million.
That is not pocket change. And it was for two main things: violating children's privacy rules, so collecting data on kids without explicit parental consent, and using what are called dark patterns.
Dark patterns. That sounds ominous.
It refers to user interface design that is intentionally built to trick you. Confusing buttons, making it really easy to buy something but nearly impossible to cancel, tricking kids into spending real money. Governments are waking up to this. They're saying you cannot manipulate children and you cannot hoard their data.
And what kind of data are we talking about here? The notes distinguish between personal, behavioral, and technical data.
Right. Personal is obvious: your name, your email. Technical is your hardware ID, your IP address. But behavioral is the really interesting and frankly scary one.
What falls under behavioral data?
Everything you do in the game. How long you play, who you play with, what items you look at in the shop but don't buy, how quickly you click. Games are tracking machines. They build a psychological profile of you to keep you engaged and, to sell you things more effectively.
And under laws like GDPR, players have the right to be forgotten.
Yes, you can email a game company and say, delete everything you know about me, and legally they have to scrub it.
That sounds like a complete technical nightmare for them.
It is. Imagine your data is scattered across 50 different servers, backup tapes, and analytics databases. Finding every single trace of John Doe and making sure it's deleted is a massive engineering challenge. But they have to do it or face enormous fines.
So bringing this all together, we have mapped out a battlefield. It's a $1.8 billion industry under constant, relentless siege. We have teenagers with aimbots, we have criminal cartels with match-fixing schemes, and we have nation-states potentially probing for weaknesses.
And the defense is this really complex layering. It's not just one thing. It's the player using a YubiKey hardware token. It's the developer using Argon Tuid to properly hash passwords. It's the network engineer using Anycast to deflect massive DDoS attacks. And yes, it is the AntiCheat team asking for kernel access to your machine.
It really emphasizes resilience. As the source said, it's not if you get attacked, but how fast you respond. That 197-day detection time that has to come down.
Absolutely. Speed is the currency of modern defense.
So here is where we leave you today. We talked a lot about kernel-level anti-cheat, that software that dives deep into the very core of your operating system just to ensure a fair game. We accept it, or many of us do, because we want to know that the person who shot us in the game actually had the skill to do it.
We trade privacy for fair play. It's a transactional relationship.
Exactly. But here is the provocative thought to chew on. As these anti-cheat systems require deeper and deeper access to our computers, Ring 0 access, are we effectively conditioning an entire generation of users to surrender total privacy in exchange for entertainment?
That is the worry, isn't it?
If we get used to giving Riot or Blizzard total access to our machines just to play a game, what happens when a bank or an insurance company or even an employer says, hey, to use our service, we need that same Ring 0 access to ensure you aren't committing fraud?
It establishes a precedent. The door to the kernel is being opened for games. The question is, who walks through it next?
That is the question. Thanks for diving in with us. Stay secure out there. Update your passwords. Make them long, not just complex. And maybe get yourself a hardware key. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Stay safe out there.